Cassie, it looks like we have a quorum and it's 6 o'clock.
Yep, I think we're good to go.
All right. It is 6 o'clock on Monday, November 9th. I'll call the Easthampton Conservation Commission meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found below. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the meeting ends abruptly, the meeting will not be restarted and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items, and in case it's not clear, this meeting is being recorded? Cassie, are you aware of any public concerns?
No, I do not have any. I did have a request to take the Whitebrook dredging project out of agenda order, but I don't know if their contractor is here yet. So I don't know if they can do that.
I'd say that we stick with agenda order until such a time that there's a need to be flexible.
Okay, Jamie, you were saying they're not here.
No, I believe the phone number that's listed on the purchasing panel is our contractor.
Oh,
Paulo Luciano's excavation. I'm here.
Hi. Given that we have a public hearing, I'd like to proceed with that first.
Okay.
And then we can certainly entertain moving things along for those others present. So we'll now open the public hearing for a notice of intent filed by the Berkshire Design Group on behalf of Chris Rogers of Corner Pocket Billiard Hall at 105 Pleasant Street, map 136, lot 11, for construction of a new billiards hall, Mass DEP file number 151310.
Great. Hi, everyone. Jeff Squire from the Berkshire Design Group here on behalf of Chris Rogers. Presenting for a new project at 105 Pleasant Street. This is across from Eastworks. I guess the easiest thing for me to do is just, if I can share my screen, is that possible?
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. There we go. Okay, perfect. Everybody can see that, hopefully. Great. So just real quickly, I'll go through the site and the proposal, and then answer any questions that anybody might have. Oops, sorry. So the site is at 105 Pleasant Street. This is a recent aerial image just showing the property location, again, across from the Eastworks building. Pleasant Street here runs diagonally across the site. It's adjacent to the gravel overflow lot for Eastworks. Tough to see in this image, but going back, a couple of years, this is 2001. The site, at least at the upper level, used to be an old gas station, I presume, an old filling station. This is 2005, but you can still see the remnants of, majority of the parking lot, the pumps and the canopy and some of the other infrastructure that used to be there now. The site in its current condition, these two photos on the top are at the top of the site, so you can still see, a lot of the asphalt and concrete below, the leaf surface. There's a lot of black locust and other, sort of invasives that have come in and sprouted through, but majority of the top of the site is covered with, some sort of impervious surface. Down below in the backside, the I guess the northern half of the site drops off fairly steeply beyond the edge of this hillside. You can see the slope This is looking, I guess, to the northeast, to the adjacent apartment building. You can see in the background, but the slope drops off. There are a couple of terraces in the back before it flattens out, predominantly before you approach the brook and some of the wetland resource areas. These photos were taken, I think, a couple of years ago. There was still a lot of trash and debris down there. I know a lot of that has gotten cleaned up since, but at least along the whole backside of this slope, it appears it's been, a dumping ground for years for some of those businesses. But that appears to be a major improvement, at least in what I've seen in the last couple of years. So anyway, again, just zooming in on the site, the upper portion of the site, you can really see the developed portion is all the level portion up here. The site drops off, fairly precipitously to the back to the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland, in the back of the site. The extent of what used to be there really does follow the top of the hill. The proposal is to redevelop the site with it's roughly a 3,700 square foot single story billiards hall. So that would occupy the western portion of the site. The eastern portion of the site, we've got a small parking lot. There's a stormwater system. We have a rain garden out in front, some other landscape elements. Sidewalks. There's the rear deck that would be cantilevered slightly over that slope, but really the remainder of the site would remain untouched. We do have a single stormwater outlet in the buffer zone associated with a parking lot discharge, but we have a level up spreader and a single 10-inch pipe that does go down to the hill to discharge that system there. But the remainder of the site to the north will remain undisturbed. And much in its current condition. Again, just walking through the plan set, we have a site demolition and erosion control plan showing how we intend to both construct the site, prevent sediment and erosion control during construction, and then following construction. Basic layout plans showing the site, stormwater drainage plans. Again, we've got a rain garden out front to capture what we can out in front. There's a small infiltration system in the northern part of the parking lot. Again, with an overflow, there's a treatment chamber in the corner with a discharge, a 10-inch stormwater discharge down the slope to. There's this little bit of a level area, this little terrace in that slope that we're taking advantage of, so we don't need to cut all the way down the slope in the back for the discharge. Planting plan, again, rain garden details. And I think the remainder of the set is just largely construction details. Stormwater system, treatment chamber. I can go through some of the comments from DEP or answer any questions that anybody has right now, if there are any. I don't know the best way to.
So why don't you start by reviewing DEP's comments, and then we can open it up to further comments and discussion from the commission.
Sure. Okay, great. So yeah, in response to the comments that we received from DEP, first one was about the underground stormwater chambers are subject to the underground injection program. We understand that. It's paperwork that we will fill out when the project is ready to be constructed in compliance with that requirement. Stormwater zone 2, the public water supply discharge, stormwater standard 6. We did acknowledge this. At least our understanding is that specific treatment chamber, I believe I have some documentation as to how it meets the standards for that particular requirement. But again, we can review that in further detail if there's other questions. I do have some documentation in the back of this to help support that. Illicit discharge compliance. Yes, we understand that. There was a statement of compliance in the stormwater report. I'll highlight that shortly. Manufacturer's data for the treatment chamber, again, that is provided further down in these documents, along with this comment regarding the zone 2. Guidance on the use of level spreaders, that was received. We did review that. There are some calculations that I can show further down, just that demonstrate that we did review those guidelines and try to apply the best management practices and Mass Highway standards to that design. And then again, sediment basins during construction, we aren't anticipating any. We are showing some stormwater and erosion controls for the construction period. If there are separate sediment basins that are needed for construction, we'll certainly review that with the commission and make sure that those temporary sediment basins comply with all of the standards, but we don't anticipate any right now. And so just going through these, again, standard 10, prohibition of illicit discharges. We did acknowledge that requirement and provide a statement. The storm scepter, this is all of the calculations and information from the manufacturer regarding the compliance with the stormwater regulations. I'm not the civil engineer, so I can't answer all the specifics of these, but there are, we can provide this to the commission, and it provides a lot of the information that was, I think, at least my understanding, requested in those comments. And let's see, lastly, again, understanding the requirements of the guidelines for the level spreader. We did design the spreader that we've got in compliance with the Mass Highway design guidelines, which set a standard of 1.5 feet per second for discharges or velocity discharge, and we're below 1 in the 100-year storm. So we did review those guidelines. So yeah, I think real quickly that's what I've got. I'm happy to answer any other questions. But that's.
Okay. Cassie, has the city engineer received a copy of the stormwater report, and have they offered any feedback on this?
I haven't gotten any feedback from the city engineer yet. I don't know if that will be part of the planning board review as well, but I can definitely send that along and get his review.
Okay, I'd like to verify that in particular.
Mm-hmm.
All right, does anyone want to have any comments to start, or shall I start with mine?
Rock, paper, scissors.
All right then.
What is drainage on the site currently, just so we can sort of understand? Does it go out to the street or just run off the back of the lot, or how does that work?
It's a good question. I think there is a partial curb still at the back of the site. I think, looking at the topography, it really is generally pretty flat up there with a couple of small, isolated low spots, but we didn't notice any catch basins, didn't pick up any catch basins. So I suspect that, there's a portion of the site that runs directly to Pleasant Street. There's also, a portion of the site that runs off the back. There's no obvious locations where, runoff or erosion is evident. So I imagine it just happens in a sheet format, but I honestly don't know, exactly where it all goes.
Okay. And is the grading, let's see, I'm looking for, oh, here's a grading plan. So now it's going to mostly run back to, at least from the parking lot, back to that one catch basin, and then into the storm scepter, and then into the underground infiltration chamber and then down to the outfall. So what storm sizes get infiltrated versus what goes down to the level spreader?
Well, so, I mean, there is a portion of, there is some overflow during the 100-year storm, but the design is, at least that subsurface basin and the system is designed to handle, a 100-year storm. I don't know the exact volumes, but we are, so the catch basin, the subsurface system that you mentioned collects the majority of, or collects all of the parking lot runoff.
I see.
So we don't discharge that to Pleasant Street. We are, trying to infiltrate and take much of the roof drainage, to the rain garden or let it infiltrate. I don't, how much of that water is being infiltrated in a 100-year storm? I don't know exactly what those volumes are. But there will be water flowing out of that outlet pipe, I'm sure, in a 100-year storm.
Mhm. So I'm just trying to get oriented here. So is it, so it is a redevelopment project, I guess, and you're improving peak flow discharges, I assume, compared
Yes.
to existing conditions. Yeah. Okay. And where did you do test pits? I saw reference to 2 test pit logs.
Yep.
But I didn't see where those test pits were performed.
Yeah, so both of those were roughly in this, the back corner of this parking lot. So roughly where the infiltration system is, and then I think a little bit further to the east.
Okay, are those on the drawings?
They're not on the drawings. They're in the stormwater report, though. Which,
okay.
In the Pascomic Trust letter, there's some question about whether there was hazardous materials, maybe underground tanks or something. Did you guys do a phase 1 on the property to see if there's still something there, or?
My understanding is all that was done prior to this. They had one done.
Okay. And nothing was found.
Nothing was found, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there is some monitoring wells out there. There are, a couple of other remnants, but yeah, they didn't find any contaminants that.
What about clearing going down the slope for installation of the level spreader and outlet? And how is that going to get replanted? And what about maintenance access down to that point?
So the pipe installation itself, when you look at the site, the trees, it's primarily larger trees is what consists of the vegetation on that slope. There isn't much understory. The path down to the area where the level spreader is, there's a fairly clear path, through the trees. So I think, we would obviously take advantage of, there may be 1 or 2 trees that may have to come down, but obviously we want to minimize disruption of that slope. Once it's dug, it would be, seeded and replanted with some sort of stabilization fabric, I'm sure. And yeah, I don't think we anticipate vehicle access being necessary to the level spreader. We'd certainly need to get down there, with hand tools, and it's riprap, it's smaller material. There isn't anything unwieldy down there that would necessarily require a vehicle. So at least we weren't anticipating vehicle access being necessary down there.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm with Dan. That's a pretty steep slope based on the contours, at least in the survey drawing.
Yes.
So you're telling me that they're not going to use any equipment to dig the trench for the pipe, and what depth is that going to be?
I think they'll certainly use, some equipment to the extent that they can, have access from the top. I don't know, as though, I suspect it will be, a fair amount of handwork for the lower portion of it, just because of what access, they have to it. I don't know whether they'd be able to lower a mini excavator or something down there, but yeah, access is definitely challenging. We've talked to a couple contractors about it and, acknowledge that fact, but it's, I think a long arm on an excavator could certainly, access, half of that slope.
And then they're going to use shovels to do the rest?
I would suspect they may, yeah, I mean, it's only a 10-inch pipe. So it's not, it doesn't need to be, a huge pipe or a huge trench.
Mhm.
And there isn't much.
How deep a trench and how much soil are they going to be generating? So, if theoretically the excavator is reaching from the top, it's pulling the soil up and could theoretically stockpile somewhere on the level portion of the site. They're going to excavate, I guess I'm just wondering how much cover the pipe is going to have.
I'm just looking at drawings now to understand where. So there's a foot or two of cover over the top of it, generally.
So it's a 3-ish foot deep trench.
Mm-hmm.
And then the level spreader, do you have a detail of that?
There should be in the plan set, yes.
Do you know what sheet that would be on?
I'm just trying to locate it right now. Yeah, I apologize. So on the last sheet, 602 at the top of the page. I can bring it up if it's.
Can you zoom in there?
Yeah, oops.
So then they're going to excavate out how large an area?
It's what, 10 by 10? 15 by 10?
And how are they going to load all that soil out? Are they going to schlep it up the slope in buckets?
Well, we'll need to work with a contractor to understand how they'll do that. Yeah, I imagine they'll have to pull it out somehow. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to leave it there, obviously.
Right.
I guess I'm thinking, moving towards an order of conditions, we could have some kind of condition to just have more detail provided once, contractor selected and construction started as to what kind of, if any access improvements are needed.
But the permit wouldn't cover that. So that would
Yep.
have to be either, we'd have to address that after the fact if their footprint of work is going to be bigger than what we approve. Is where I'm thinking. I'm just looking at the slope. They're not, I feel like half the work is going to be very challenging.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking at this, where does the pipe come into the level spreader? And
Where
it doesn't show in that section.
well, so in the section AA, it doesn't know. It's shown in the sort of the ISO drawing, but it would come in, roughly where this, this embankment through here.
I don't know about others, but I'm no longer seeing the plans.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I stop sharing?
I'm following along in the version on the Google Drive,
Sorry about that.
on the OneDrive.
So yeah, it would come in, right through here somewhere, if people can see that.
So then on the down gradient side is the precast concrete weir.
Yes, correct.
So they're going to. So can you go over to the detail of that? I'm just.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, it's surrounded with, with a precast concrete to help contain everything and define it and provide that level lip that, that you're really trying to achieve with the spreader. There's a notch in it to allow sort of the lower flows at this elevation, but the inside is really, intended to dissipate and spread that water out, obviously.
Okay. So, are there any? I didn't notice any, and it could just be that I didn't take a good look. Are there any details on the restoration of the slope?
Not specifically. I mean, like I said, the slope itself right now really doesn't have much there aside from, a handful of trees. So there's nothing specific in the plans that speaks to, what that would be revegetated with. But
you made reference to some sort of erosion control blanket, I believe.
I would imagine they would need to put down some sort of erosion control blanket once they fill that trench. Yes.
And we're not dealing with riverfront area here, right? We're just in 100-foot buffer zone.
This is just buffer zone, correct?
Jeff, I don't know how other members of the commission feel about this, so I'm seeking their input too. But I think given the steepness of that slope, I would like to see a detail added regarding an erosion, the restoration of the surface with an erosion control blanket and what native seed mix would be proposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think it's just too long a run and too steep a slope to leave to question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the change in impervious area compared to existing conditions?
That is a good question. I know it's a reduction. I don't know how much of a reduction though.
It's a reduction in impervious area?
It is. Yeah, let me show you. Yeah, if you look at the existing site. So, so the existing site basically has asphalt below, this upper portion from, essentially this corner. You can see by 2 minutes there, it wraps around here. You can see the edge of the guardrail. There's old curbing on this back edge here that wraps around and used to tie in evidently to the, the gravel lot next door. That's what's there now. And yeah, so, we're providing some green space on the eastern portion of the site out in front of the building, and then again on the west side. And the top of slope is roughly, right here.
Mm-hmm.
I have pictures from today's site visit. If anyone wants to see those, it kind of shows how there is that kind of concrete throughout and the amount of vegetation of where the pipe is projected to go. If people want to see that.
Yes, please.
Okay. Hold on just a second. Okay, so This is just kind of showing like trees growing right out of the asphalt portion that there's there. This is an example of the slope going down. I know these are small pictures. I'm going to zoom in a little though, because this one also, this is closer to the abutting property to the east, where there's kind of existing drainage pipes going down, and kind of just shows you the steepness of that slope there. And again, so this is kind of looking down towards where they were proposing to put the pipe in the level spreader. This area down here kind of flattens out relatively, and that's where the level spreader is going to be. And then this is kind of the path going through kind of between these two big trees, some small shrubs, but and I don't know if just because it's this time of year, but it did look pretty like relatively clear. There's a lot of leaf litter. Okay. So some of the
Kathy,
concrete
can you
that's,
go back a photo?
yeah, absolutely.
So how wide do you estimate the gap between those two trees is, or that gap period?
Jeff, you might be able to answer better than I, but I would say like what, 10, 15 feet?
Yeah, I would say
Bad
at
at
least
that.
15. Yeah.
And do you
good
anticipate that
distance.
those trees would have to be, either of those or both those areas of trees would have to be removed, or do you anticipate, since they're just reaching down with the excavator, that they can reach between?
I would think they would just reach between them. I don't think they need to remove any.
What about root impacts?
A lot of the trees are, there's a number of black locusts along that edge. A lot of them aren't, real native trees that I don't think would suffer too much from a little bit of, root damage. There are some, cottonwoods and some larger, I think, silver maples or something further down. But I guess
That looks like a silver maple on the right to me.
yeah, yep. But yeah, I don't think I'd anticipate that much root damage.
Okay, should I carry on? Or you want to stay?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So yeah, some existing concrete that's also there on the more south end of the property. And this is kind of just an overview of that area that I think would probably be removed. You can see it's flat, and then the drop off would be to the left. This is a view from that gravel parking lot that's existing right now.
Sorry, Cassie, can you go back to now,
Yes.
to that level area?
This one or the one before?
That one.
Okay.
So where is this relative to the level spreader? Is this at the top of the site, or is this down the slope?
Oh, this is at the top of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All
So
right.
all those trees and everything are growing up through the pavement and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of hard to see with the leaf litter, but when you were walking around, it was clear that it was paved.
You had a photo of what tree growing through the pavement in one section.
Yeah. Yep. Right at the beginning. This guy right here.
Considered impervious at this point with all of those plants growing through it and openings in the, how do we handle that?
I'm okay with thinking of it as being like basically impervious.
I think it's more impervious than not,
Yeah.
but we can perhaps see what the city engineer thinks of that, Cassie.
Okay.
Mark, does DEP have a position in cases such as this, when there's a paved area with large diameter trees growing up through it?
No, but I didn't think, I wasn't that concerned because it's at the top of the slope and it's in the outer part of the buffer zone. So, I mean, I think there is a reduction. I didn't have an issue with that reduction in impervious area.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna keep going back through. Let's see. All right, yes, this is from the gravel pit, gravel lot abutting the property. This is again, this is more to the west, on the west side, kind of where that porch is gonna extend over. And you can see again, it drops down pretty quick, the slope there. This is the side view of the slope. Just trying to really show how steep it was. Looking back towards the west again. This is the front of the property, the street side. You can see some of the pavement there. And then this is the street front. But you can see lots of trees. And then this is back, kind of just showing that there's some holes in the trees kind of on the ground on that top. This is again from the top area. But this is the some of the area that's within the BBW. And this is the path to where, I believe this is where the level, yeah, slope to where the drainage was going to be. Again, you can kind of see that hole. Looking back to the BBW area, that's on the top of the slope. Lovely trees. And this is back from where the drainage hole in the vegetation is kind of behind me at this point. And this is looking towards the street. And this is from that gravel lot again. The street is over here. So this is back towards where the slope is somewhere starting over back here. And that is it. Does anyone want me to go back to any other pictures? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
So are there any other questions from members of the commission?
I noticed that there's a catch basin shown on the plans in sort of the, I think it would be the northeast corner of the site that's shown as existing. It's not clear to me whether that's on the existing site or if it's on the neighboring property.
So it's actually an encroachment on this property. The adjacent apartment building has, you know, a good sized portion of their parking lot that extends out over onto this property. There's a wood stockade fence that you can see out on site that sort of defines that edge, but it's, you know, it's probably 10 or 12 feet inside this property. And they do have a little drain in that corner that, as Cassie was pointing out before, some of those drain lines go down from that drain basin down the slope to the back.
So that remains as is and has no bearing on the project.
I mean, yeah, if there's nothing in the plans that they don't want to deal with the encroachment, then they don't have to, I guess. But I guess it's interesting because, yeah, they are encroaching on their property.
Yeah, that seems like not our purview to address that existing condition.
Mm.
Could I ask about the all the cement and concrete? Where are you going to be stockpiling this once you start removing?
You mean from the existing site?
Yes.
I imagine when they start demolition, they'll just remove that and put it right in the back of a dump truck and haul it away, you know, somewhere.
Deborah, I think we could address that by prohibiting stockpile of demolition debris within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay.
If that's something the rest of the commission is amenable to.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, you may have covered this, but what are the planned erosion controls?
Oh, sorry, you're muted, Jeff.
We've got erosion control across the top of the embankment. Obviously, that's, that will be the major controls. We also are showing, some erosion control and silt fence around the level up spreader. And once the, storm scepter and catch basin is put in, there'll be a temporary sediment basin or silt sack, placed in that structure as well throughout the duration of construction. And then once construction is complete, that will be removed. The top of the slope is the primary protection.
And what's proposed there? Is that a silt fence that's towed in at the top of slope?
I believe there's a silt fence and a straw wattle in front of it, silt sock in front of it.
I'm looking for that
Find-
detail. Is that on one of the detail sheets?
Yeah, I don't actually see it on there.
Look on LC 200.
Oh, yep, LC 200, right. So we have hay
Okay.
bales and silt fence.
Presumably those are actually straw bales, so there's no seed.
I can share my screen if anyone wants me to. I have it pulled up here as well.
Jeff, I'm with Julie. Can that note be revised to refer to hay and not straw?
Other way around.
That's the way I mean it. Straw and not hay. Thank you.
And so then is this an application under the Easthampton Stormwater Bylaw in addition to Wetlands Protection Act?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that's involved with that is a bond for the value of stormwater improvements.
Mhm.
And is this going before the planning board or is this just us at this point? Because usually we combine the bond between the two processes if it is going between the two different boards.
Right. I believe this is going to the zoning board. Is that, Cassie may correct me, but I think this is a ZBA. Or no, I'm sorry, this is planning board. Yes, we do have planning board.
Yeah, I was gonna say planning board, definitely. I don't know if zoning board or not. Though usually.
Sorry, I think I'm getting it confused with another project. Sorry, I get too many projects in Easthampton.
Okay.
Yes, this is planning board.
All right. So to determine the bond amount, we need a cost estimate for the value of the stormwater improvements. And sometimes the city engineer has got that together. But if you happen to have one that you could provide to Cassie, that would be helpful information.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna be reaching out to the city engineer anyways. So if you guys don't have one, I can ask him to do that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have some numbers for that.
What flows is the rain garden receiving? Is that taking runoff from the roof?
It should be runoff from the roof. Any of the ground out in front, but primarily roof runoff. Yes.
And is there it may be in here and I didn't see it, but is there an operation and maintenance plan for the various stormwater features?
There should be, yes. In the stormwater report, there should be.
I think I'm all set with questions. I don't think I have any more right now.
I have a question. I thought I read that you wanted to put in a wildflower seed mix in the disturbed areas. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
A wildflower seed mix?
There may be, and I have to look at the plant list out front. There may be some associated with the rain garden out front, but I think that's primarily plugs and perennials.
Yes, no, I read that, but I thought I read that they wanted to put it also in the disturbed areas.
Oh,
There's a restoration seed mix.
right. Yeah, so we in areas in the buffer zone, or that we need to disturb on the site in the back, we would propose to put some sort of restoration seed mix following construction.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, can you talk about how they're going to construct the raised wood deck, since it extends beyond the top of slope to where their significant grade change begins?
Sure. So at least the detail that I've seen, there's a small cantilever to it, but it largely just entails precast, concrete, footings that would show up on site, and they would just, use an auger to drill those holes, so there's minimal disturbance, and they would set the precast sonotube essentially, and anchor the deck to that.
How many are there going to be? How deep do they have to go?
Well, they'd have to go to frost, so they're at least 4 feet deep below the surface. How many? I would guess there's probably 4 or 6 of them. I don't know, to be honest with you. Maybe there's a few more than that.
And then what's the area under that going to be? Because it's, at least on the slope, is that just going to be, how is that going to be stabilized?
Well, I don't think, at least for there isn't much there now that I think, largely would be just left, a natural ground cover. I don't think there's, much disturbance that would need to happen back there. Once they remove the asphalt, I'm just looking at the site plan to see where the limits of the work is. So half of the deck, roughly half the deck, a little bit more than half the deck extends beyond the existing paved surface. And so I would imagine that those footings would get placed in the slope, and once it gets framed out, there's no need to disturb anything in the slope. We could certainly put a seed mix down, or, something. I don't know what's going to grow under that deck, but that existing slope that's there now, again, it doesn't show signs of erosion or slumping or anything else. So I guess the idea would be to disturb it as least as possible.
I would give my left pinky finger if somebody could come up with a deep shade, like restoration seed mix. I've been looking at that so many different times.
You chose the most useless finger, Dan. So I guess I'm looking at sheet LC 500 that shows a limit of work line, and it cuts through the middle of the deck.
Okay.
Can we just bump that out to encompass?
We can, yeah.
Deck?
Yeah.
I don't have the stormwater report. Is there an area for snow stockpiling identified? I assume it's just when you get plowed.
Yeah, I don't know if there is. We may not. No, I don't think there's a snow storage plan.
Cassie, what have we, can you remind me what how we phrased things in the past in terms of snow or de-icing chemicals or prohibition thereof?
I know in our boilerplate, we have, I think it refers to whatever the city's best practice is, but it might specifically also reference anything within the buffer zone. Hold on, let me pull one up real quick.
Thank you.
Okay. So for example, 6973 Loudville Road, we have an in perpetuity condition reading, road ice management techniques shall adhere to guidelines and practices followed by the City of Easthampton Department of Public Works. I can't remember if we had changed that one. We might have changed it during that. Let me just find one more just to be sure.
Or perhaps it's something we can follow up on if it's not really. Yeah. So, Cassie, you said you included a letter from Pascomic Conservation Trust. Is there anyone, does it look like there are any attendees to this meeting from PCT or the public that we can open this to comments?
I'm not sure if Mr. Bundy is here for this or not. Otherwise, I can read the letter just for the record.
Sure.
Okay, I'll just read that real quick. So as you said, this is a public comment submitted by Pascomic Conservation Trust. It was received on November 5th, 2020, and it goes as follows. Dear Chair Cody and Chair Atwater, with apologies for this late submission, as an abutter, Pascomic Conservation Trust would like to briefly comment on this development proposal. Bordering the project parcel on its northeastern edge, Edward Dwyer Conservation Area consists of 35 acres of largely floodplain land with a scenic footprint path along the bank of the Manhan River. The land was deeded to the trust by the city in 1985 and serves as an important natural area for wildlife and passive recreation, particularly given its location in the heart of the city. Pascomic does not object to development of the neighboring property. In fact, has cooperated with the seller in confirming our shared boundary. We are happy to see this urban property return to productive use and to the tax rolls. We have just a few observations to make, which we hope can be considered in your respective reviews of the proposed project. The first item is the steep slope along the bank of the lot in proximity to the river and natural area call for a clear boundary between the development and the rear of the parcel. Strict measures need to be taken to ensure that that construction waste, debris, excavated soil, etc. are confined to the construction zone. The second point is recognizing that the buildable area is narrow, likely necessitating clearing most of the upland, removal of natural vegetation should still be minimized to the extent possible to reduce erosion and retain a visual buffer between the conservation area and the new building and the street. And the last point is, there once was a service station in the vicinity which required extensive cleanup and monitoring. If that was in fact located on this parcel, it should be confirmed before construction that all hazardous waste remediation was completed and that new excavation, etc., on the parcel will not trigger release of toxic substances into the conservation area and the Manhan River. Sincerely, Garrett Stover, Volunteer Land Conservation Advisor for Pascomic Conservation Trust.
So I think that kind of echoes some of the concerns that that the commission has regarding work on the slope, stabilizing the steep slope. Just taking a moment here. There is, in fact, it's listed as the former Sitco station.
Yeah, Jeff, you said there was completed a phase 1 or just a review of the materials that were there before. Do you know if that was sent along with the NOI, or maybe you could send it along if the commission wants to see?
Sure, yeah, I didn't submit anything with the application, but I can certainly pass that along. So I can get that from the owner, yeah.
I think because I think that's a little bit beyond our purview. Mark can either nod or, I don't know, give me a sign if I'm wrong. I think it would.
Well, if there's an AUL or anything like that, they'd have to comply with any requirements.
And I guess what I'm wondering here is there appears to have been a response action outcome filed for this site. And its status is temporary solution, permanent solution feasible. And I am so far removed from the world of the MCP and LSP speak that I don't know what that really means in terms of long-term requirements. So I guess I will see if I can find out if that means they're going to have to rip up the site and do something else for remediation, or if that's a semi-permanent solution.
Well, if they went through the bank would, tell them what the LSP of record would say what could or couldn't be done.
There appear
It's
to
not
have
really
been 4
you.
LSPs of record to date, Mark.
Okay, I'm just pulling it up.
Yep.
Are you on the DEP website? Are you looking at that?
I'm looking at the waste site and reportable release information.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at too. Yeah. So I'd have to look up oh, there it is right there. So last one was from June 20, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Temporary solution, permanent solution feasible. So they'd have to comply with it even outside of, if you look at general condition 1 and 3, it says they have to comply with all other state, federal, local requirements anyway. So you can still issue an order and they're still obligated to comply with any other state law anyway.
What does this mean relative to the underground infiltration chambers? Are you allowed to infiltrate through?
You can. Usually if there's a question on whether or not infiltration is appropriate, then you get an opinion letter from the LSP of record. And they're the ones that are supposed to say, yes, infiltration's fine, or no, we should not be infiltrating.
And considering this is in our zone 2, that seems like something we should get an answer to.
Well, I was hoping, if there was a question, then the consultant should have, the engineer of record should have noted it in the stormwater report, and I don't remember seeing anything about that.
Jeff, is that something you can follow up on, please? You're on mute, but I think I thought I saw you say yes. Thank you.
Yeah, we can certainly look into it some more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So just kind of to give a bit of a recap, if there's no further public input, or if are there any further comments from the commission at this time? Mark would like to make a comment. Yes.
If the commission, I just want to explain for a second some of my file number comments.
Okay.
So I mentioned the zone 2 and stormwater standard 6. The reason I made the comment was their stormwater report states that the project site does not discharge to critical areas. And the answer is yes, it does. So the stormwater report is incorrect. And then on the illicit discharge statement, and I catch these things all the time because I see these errors all the time. So it says, the illicit discharge statement says, there will be no illicit discharges under the scope of the project. But what standard 10 says is that you've investigated and there are no current illicit discharges. So that's why I had to comment in there.
Mhm.
I mean, so I still don't have, and you don't have any proof that there are no illicit discharges. Knowing these type sites, you do run across illicit discharges on occasion.
Sure.
And the rest was just, standard stuff. I like giving guidance on the level spreader, and, talking about whether or not sediment traps are needed. And then the storm scepter, that's, a lot of times what I worry about is that the maintenance on these units won't be done. The maintenance on the level spreader won't be done. And the maintenance on the underground infiltration basin won't get done. I see this everywhere. So I think, Melissa's concern, the commission's concern on the construction of it and the actual maintenance of it is, I find, extremely valid points.
Sure.
That's all. Thank you.
Mark. So I guess to recap, to make sure we're all on the same page about what we want additional information about. Dan requested or indicated that we would need something regarding the cost of the stormwater infrastructure to determine the bond value under the stormwater ordinance. Dan, do you think we need a figure that shows test pit locations, or are you satisfied with the information that was provided in the stormwater report?
There is a figure in the stormwater.
Oh, there's a figure. Sorry, I did not
Yeah.
look at the stormwater report yet. Details regarding slope restoration, such as erosion control blanket and native seed mix. The erosion control details are there, but we would like to see them say straw, not hay.
Yep.
Snow storage plan, and Cassie's going to look into information regarding de-icers.
Sure.
Does anyone else have anything on the kind of the to-do list there to follow up on, or does that?
No stockpile within the buffer zone?
Yep, we talked about, right. Thank you, Jay. We talked about prohibiting stockpile of any material in the buffer zone.
Mm-hmm.
Just so to add to that list as well, the total change in impervious area explicitly listed. Let's see, do we need to change the plan to show the limit of work to accommodate the deck structure?
Thank you.
And the number of, what is the word for the things that are in the ground? I can't think.
Oh, the sonnet tubes.
Ears or
That's the one. Thank you. Okay, and then snow stockpile location.
Yep.
And let's see. Did we decide that we did want the information on the cleanup? It all kind of ties into the zone 2 and the LSPs that are out there.
I think we need to know more about whether or not it's appropriate to infiltrate.
Okay.
So in so much as that's within our purview, yes.
Okay.
So based on this list of outstanding items and the need to hear back from the city engineer, would anyone care to make a motion to continue to, Cassie, what is the date of our next meeting?
November 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call vote. August,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Harwood,
Aye.
Buttrick,
Aye.
Busa,
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Continue to November 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
You so much, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll be in touch, Jeff. I can send you an email with a list of all these things that we requested as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, so going back, there was a request to take an agenda item out of order. This would be, let me find it, agenda item 7.
7E.
7E. Okay, City of Easthampton has their motion to take agenda item 7E out of order.
I'll make a motion to take 7E out of order.
Roll. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. August.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Harwood.
Aye.
Buttrick.
Aye.
Busa.
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 7E. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'll pass it over to Jamie here in a second, who probably will pass it over to the contractor, but just a quick review. This is for a request for administrative approval for a revision to the means and methods of the Cofferdam on, I believe it's Whitebrook. But yeah, I'll pass it over to you, Jamie.
And I'm going to do exactly like you said and pass it over to our contractor, Paula, who is on the phone. You still there, Paula?
If you want to unmute yourself, I think you have to press *6 on your phone. Yeah.
Yep, I'm here. What was the question? You guys want me to just give a scenario of what happened to this point?
Yeah, and I can share my screen with the plan, the letter that you sent me as well. Do you want me to do that simultaneously?
Okay, so there was a white in Broadbrook. So we mobilized the first week, I think it was October 5th, and we completed the Whitebrook sediment removal, no issues. Once we started on the Broadbrook, there seemed to be a lot more water entry zones than what was shown on the drawings. And what we attempted to do is install additional cofferdams. And when we intended to install an additional cofferdam, the super sex, the water eroded around it and it basically just undermined the super sex. So based on what we have out there currently, we were trying to brainstorm to figure out what can we do to complete the project this year. So the only thing that we could come up with is to perform the work, basically prioritize to as much work as we can in the dry, but knowing that this a lot of that work will also be done in the wet. Originally, the plan was to install a cofferdam system where the water was originally coming into the basin, and then one on the downstream of the basin, and basically bypass pump between the two. What's going on there now, because there's about 2 or 3 different locations that are coming in, and what we attempted to install with the cofferdam, the conditions don't allow us to install a cofferdam. So the only thing that we can think of is to basically perform water diversion via constructing a swale in the wet to allow water to basically around the work area, get as much excavation done as possible in the dry, and then remove that temporary basin in order to get the project requirement. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head. I think it's about 1,200 yards of sediment within the basin. So originally it was supposed to be done in dry lake conditions, but what's going on there now, I don't see it being done with what's shown in the drawings with bypass pumping.
Yeah, and just to clarify, what I'm displaying on my screen now is the proposed plan.
Okay, with a swale, with a swale, and then there was some comments by the engineer and the town, and I believe you as well, where what we can do for erosion controls is we can install temporary stone check dams on top of geotextile fabric, several along basically right before bends within the temporary swale, to make sure that we prevent as much soil erosion as possible, as well as install a turbidity current, which was originally not called for because it was supposed to be done bypass at the very downstream limits of the work area.
Do we have a picture here that shows the original plan as well?
Yeah, here, let me scroll up. So let's see. I believe this is the original plan that I'm displaying right now. It's labeled as existing. This is they added this to show that there's more flow happening. But the original cofferdam was supposed to be here. Then they had another revision. This is just showing existing. Then they were going to put in the super sacks here to make sure everything was directed to that original cofferdam plan. Those are the ones that failed. And then this is a new plan. Do you want me to stay on any of these?
So where is the additional water coming in that's causing the problem?
It looks like right here, approximate location of stream flow, right? So right around here. But I think it's...
And there's 2 photos as well. There should be 2 photos attached to that as well.
Yeah, I had one photo of the existing conditions. It looked like it was from let me just scroll up to those again. Yeah, I only had one photo in there.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. So yeah, I guess they merge here.
So it seemed like sometimes, what happened was the original stream somehow, some way must have got clogged at one point, and the water is now not coming as, it's still coming through the original stream as shown in the drawings, but the flow is not 100% within that stream. So somehow, some way, there must have been a breach, and now instead of coming where it's showing more on the northern side of the detention of the basin, it's now coming more of like the southeast side in the wetlands area. And what's happening is when we install the super sacks within our limits of excavation, we're installing super sacks on top of the existing soil, and that soil is sediment. So because the sediment has no structural integrity to it, the water is coming in with a pretty good current, and it's just undermining the super sacks that we placed, which was our Alt 1 plan.
So it wasn't eroding around the sides of them so much as it was eroding underneath.
Correct.
I see.
Because when we installed them on Tuesday, it worked fine. When we showed up the next day, it was undermined.
Mm-hmm.
Cassie, is there a photo that you can scroll to that shows where this temporary swale with check dams is proposed?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see what I've got from the past site visits. So let's see. new share. Okay, so this is kind of like an overview of the area. And it's the Cofferdam is going to be back here, kind of on the other side of where I was standing. And this is the existing basin to be cleared. And then my understanding is that the water is coming through over here. And that this is where they put the super stacks, was along this edge here.
So the proposed swale, inside the basin, there was already a channel where most of the water already flowed through. So the temporary swale is already there for the most part. It's just making that connection where it's entering the site, digging out a swale section so it goes back to the inside the what's the word I'm looking for? It's inside the bank that the water's already running through. When we did the sidewalk about 2 months ago, most of the water was just running around a small little area, maybe about 10, 15 feet of bank. So we just want to divert that water back into that swale, because the rest of that, the majority of that basin, it's already filled up with the mud.
So we're constrained by not increasing impacts, the area of impact, or where the areas that do get impacted compared to what the existing permit application contained and what we issued a permit for. So I guess given that, are we like, is this a matter of handling water in different ways within essentially the same limit of work as previously permitted?
Correct. We're still within our limits of excavation. Nothing has changed. Now it's just a matter of doing some more work in the wet versus completely doing it in the dry, because originally we were supposed to be baptized.
Sure. Okay. And so I'm assuming the reason for, the planning to have designed this in the dry in the first place, which granted you weren't involved with at all, was to be able to get, help dewater the sediment a little bit before it got excavated and hauled. But do you anticipate, so if you're excavating in the wet, do you anticipate having problems with, managing a sloppier material, or do you think it's still going to work out okay?
It's still going to work out okay because we have a designated area, which is probably about 1,500 feet. So the swimming pool area. So we're still allowed to stockpile the material for a day within that bank. Oh, the material that gets excavated, we can haul it to our laydown area, which is I believe it's called the swimming pool area or house, and that can stay in that location, which is the asphalt parking lot, until it dries out. Once it's dried out and we feel comfortable that there is no completely saturated material, at that point we can do the final transportation, which is the reuse area.
Okay.
So we'll not be on public road. It was with a completely saturated material.
Okay. So then the issue, when you already alluded to this, becomes, turbidity control. Our concern being turbidity leaving the work area. And you said you'd be, so the stone check dams, the purpose of those is that to help filter water before getting the turbidity curtain, or
both. So it slows down the water before it bends, and then it also traps turbidity. Sorry, it traps soil. It's the sediment.
Yep.
So I think I recommended 3 of them. If you notice on the plan, it's right before the bend. So it slows down the water before it starts eating up the bends within the swale.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very end, on the downstream section, we can put a 50-foot section of turbidity curtain where there will be our last, so to speak, erosion control barrier.
Okay.
But based on what we've done in the past, the stone check dams for us work great because it does slow down the water and it does trap soils quite a bit.
And so the stone gets underlain with filter fabric so that it will all, so that you can get all the stone out at the end.
Correct.
That makes sense.
I'm still not 100% clear where the swale is going. It's actually in that inundated area that we were just looking at.
What do you mean inundated? I'm not on the screen, so I apologize.
Oh, right, you're
I'm
not seeing it.
calling in.
Sorry, we were just
So
looking at a photo of the wet area. That's
Yeah.
I guess, the basin.
It's completely saturated right now. Yeah. So the water, as it went inside that original basin before we started working, when it was dry weather, it originally went inside and it created basically a bank inside the detention basin area, the low spots. So what we just want to do is just use what's there already and just make sure it basically guide the water that's coming in from the breach into that swale.
So it's the blue line on the figure that we're looking at. That Cassie's pointing to, that would be where that would be excavated. And so those stone check dams would go in that swale at 3 different spots.
Correct.
Yeah, and just so for Julie, for perspective, this is pretty much where I was standing when I took the photo. It was kind of like in this shaded area, looking out towards the wet area.
Cassie, is there that upstream cofferdam now, the one that's the full width of the stream? Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Is that in place now?
Paulo, you can probably answer that.
No, it was not effective. So if you're talking about the one that we attempted to do with the breach, to block the breach, we installed that and then we removed it because it was doing no good.
Okay.
I don't.
And
I
then
don't
the
think I mean
original
I don't
cofferdam.
think that one. I think the one I'm talking about is the one that's on the original
That's not installed.
drawing.
No.
That's not there.
No. So if while parking it, if that's the original swale or channel, that original channel must be probably maybe 5 inches, 6 inches of water flow. The breach is probably about 2 to 3 feet of water flow.
I see.
So the majority of all the water is going through the breach.
So there's been a significant change in field conditions since this was put on paper the first time.
The water is coming in from a different location. Yeah, the majority of the water is now coming in from a different location.
Cassie, when were you out there?
The last site visit was on September 2nd.
Paulo, have conditions changed or gotten worse since that site visit, that time?
Well, no, the photos that I got you. So we mobilized October 5th, and it took us 2 weeks to do the first one. So October 19th or so is when we started working on the Broadbrook, and then we've been demobilized for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago is when I took that photo and attached it to that work plan. And 2 weeks ago is also when we tried to do the cofferdam, which is cofferdam Alt 1, which is along that southeast side of the basin. We attempted that on Monday, got it installed on Tuesday, and then when we showed up on Wednesday, it washed out. And at that point, that's when we said we had to stop and come up with something else. To answer your question, that's from 2 weeks ago.
And we were going to do 2 pre-construction meetings because we did one for the other. Yeah, exactly. And so we were waiting to do the site visit for this one once it was realized that the conditions have changed.
Correct. Originally, we were supposed to get the cofferdams installed and the bypass pumping installed. At that point, we were going to set up the meeting. We never got to that point.
What would your sequence of construction be for putting in that swale for the channel? Downstream to upstream, and for what do you think?
It'll be downstream to upstream, yes. So the way the water's coming in right now to breach, if we potentially could put a couple of supersets because we still have them on site, and I still got an extra load there because it's ordered. I could potentially put a few across where the water that's breaching, it can go. I could divert it from the swell that we're working on, because what happened is the muck that's there, most of the water is only about 6 to 12 inches deep, for the most part. And then the deep location where the swale is at that point, the proposed swale, that's pretty deep. That water is probably 3 to 4 feet deep. So the water, when it comes into the detention basin, it does not funnel and go through one isolated channel. It just comes in and it just spreads along the whole basin because it is pretty flooded. So I would work downstream and work my way up. So that way when I make the final connection and I get all the water in, all that erosion control is already in place.
Makes sense.
Cassie, this is all within the permitted impact numbers of the original permit?
It's within, the same area. And it's funny because they're building the swale through the area that they're originally going to dredge anyway, is my understanding. It's just now that they're not going to be doing dredge before they were going to put the cofferdam in so that area would become dry and then do the dredging. And now they're going to just dredge it while it's wet, but in a controlled way.
That's correct. And then if you go out there now, there's stakes. We have 10-foot offset of stakes, limits of the limits of excavation. So if you go there, it is staked.
Did the permit require any water quality monitoring, turbidity monitoring during work, construction?
Yes.
Can you remind me of those details? This was an extension from before the original permit was before my time.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No.
I thought we just extended this one. Okay.
Yeah, we were both on the board for the original.
Oh, lucky. It's been a while.
Jamie,
I don't remember what the details are either.
GZA is doing weekly turbidity monitoring of the site for the order of conditions.
I can
How
pull
many
up.
locations are they monitoring?
They're doing an upstream and a downstream. Let me pull up the information. I don't have that coming out. Give me another second, please.
I mean, upstream and downstream makes sense so that you can see if there's, what the existing condition is and then what the effect of the site is.
And Diana's on site on a daily basis also, right?
Yes.
I found the condition that talks about turbidity if you want me to read it to you.
Well, I know GZA is doing it because 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, 2 weeks from Wednesday, they were out there when we stopped. So, and they were out there 1 week before we even mobilized in order to get a baseline to community monitoring. So I know that was done.
Cassie, have you been getting those readings?
Diane was sending me the daily reports. I don't know that I've gotten the engineer's field report.
So,
Or Jamie, do you have that information?
yeah, so
Can you
we,
put forward to Cassie?
yeah, the field reports, since they construct, the field reports were only required while construction was ongoing. There have been no reports. We did all the reporting as required under the Whitebrook Basin, but the Broadbrook Basin never got started. We never had the site visit, so there was no reporting for the Broadbrook yet. The turbidity monitoring plan, which I just pulled up, was approved by DEP, and it had 2 monitoring locations, one immediately upstream and one immediately downstream of the basin. That's helpful. I can pull up a map showing those locations if that's helpful.
Yes, please.
So this is the Broadbrook Basin here. The photos that Cassie was showing earlier were taken from approximately this location where my cursor is. The stream channel shown in this blue arrow as shown on the plans, kind of wrapped around and then comes into the basin. And then this is approximately where that breach is that Paulo was talking about. And so the 2 red dots were where the monitoring, turbidity monitoring is taking place.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my thought on the matter is that it seems like a reasonable way to solve this construction related issue that's happening, and it sounds like it doesn't increase the impacts to the project. But the concern just becomes like, you know, a tiny little sprinkle of sediment makes a big turbidity problem that leads to complaints, even if it has essentially 0 impact. You know, and I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with doing the city doing their absolute best, and the contractor doing their absolute best, and understanding that you know, it's going to be a little bit challenging, but you know, it increases the risk of, and I'm going to say complaints and not really impacts, I guess. So I'm inclined to be okay with it.
I think this aerial emphasizes the, you know, somewhat dynamic nature of the upstream conditions immediately adjacent to the basin. You see lots of stream channel action.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how else they're going to achieve the project goals within the permitted limits without doing it this way.
Yep.
Anyone else? Julie, Jay, Deborah, Michael, Jessica?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. So are we authorizing the change in means and methods within the permitted limits as an administrative approval?
I'll move to authorize the change in means and methods within the permitted limits as a administrative approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Harwood,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Busa,
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to make one statement, though. Is this work covered under 401? This got a 401 dredge permit. They're still obligated to comply with that.
Jamie, is that something you can follow up on? when you-
Yeah, so there was a 401 permit issued by DP. So, well, now that it's been approved by the Conservation Commission,
That doesn't matter.
we'll notify
You know?
we'll notify DP about.
Well,
those
you're gonna have to ask DEP whether or not it's acceptable. Right?
I assume so, yes.
Okay. I mean, we have the same standard. If you want to change something, you need to check with us first. Just like you guys, you know, if they want to change something, they've got to check with you because there's a valid permit. So we're the same.
Yeah, Jamie, I'll be sending you a letter of describing what we've approved here. I don't know if that's something that you'll need for when you go to talk about the 401, but I'll be sending it to you.
Okay. We'll have to confer and figure out what the next steps are.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Paulo, thank you for your time as well. I appreciate your patience in explaining this, especially not being able to see the screen we're looking at.
No problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so are we ready to resume agenda order? Okay, resuming agenda order. We have no requests for certificates of compliance, so item 5, enforcement actions. Cassie, take it away.
Yeah, so for 66 Cherry Street, the last thing for the last meeting, we were looking to see how those plantings that they put in had done. I did a site visit today. I'm gonna share my screen real quick and show you what I saw. Hold on just a second. Okay. This is looking down up at the property from the Brickyard Brook below. You can see they've left some of the, not the hay, but the straw there, but the plantings are coming through on top of it, or through it, I mean. And Julie was able to send some old photos of the area of what had been there before, but I couldn't really tell from those photos, Julie, what, because the property itself is like off. It's just like a tiny little piece in the corner of the image. So I don't know if that's enough to go off of what it had been before.
Yes, in this angle, what is the stone to the left of that? Is that a shagbar kickery?
What's that? Sorry.
What's the stone I'm seeing to the left?
think that was, I want to say, let me check the other site visit photos. I want to say that was there before. I don't think that was, okay. It was there before. So let's see. Oh. Yeah, okay. So I think it was part of the work, the unauthorized work. I can show you.
So some of it's still in place and some of it's been removed? Oh, I see. It's at the top of the slope.
Yeah, it's at the very top of the slope.
Okay.
So yeah, this was the unauthorized work right here. They didn't dump any material down at this point, and this is where they were trying to
Extend out the flat area.
So this is when they just had put in the plantings to replace it.
Okay.
Cassie, could you go back to that previous picture that you were just showing?
Is it right here?
Yeah, so I was there this week, and it looks like what's under downslope of that silt fence looked like it was also in rough shape too.
Oh, really?
But it seemed to be, I think it was recent impact, you know, part of this whole, whatever this project is that they were doing. I can check it again and let you know.
Do you mean like down here?
Yeah, maybe it was there. I was on the trail, so I was on the other side of the Brickyard Brook. But
this should be like the brook here, and then the trail's like over here, kind of. But yeah, that's where I took my photo earlier, was from there. Right, it was zoomed in on this area primarily. Down here, though, I remember. I don't know if I have any of the pictures of the original violation.
That was the thing, I wasn't sure if it had actually been, if the water had sort of scoured the bank, or whether it was from the project.
Yeah, because when the violation was originally discovered and I investigated it, it was more just that they had done all this work at the top of their yard and then dumped the extra soil that they had, you know, when they were leveling it out, they just kind of pushed it down the slope. So it looked like there, you know, it was just kind of a mound here. And in this picture, I can't see any of it like built up down there. So I don't know if that would be a new thing.
It's possible that it was prior to that work.
Okay.
But I wasn't sure if it was just that all of the stuff that they had dumped had sort of just like, because there was just no vegetation along the bank there, and so I wasn't sure why that was. So.
Here, let me, oh, wrong photo. This one. This is the original disturbance, or violation, excuse me. So you can see there was a grassy area extending below where it kind of leveled out, and then this is the big pile of dirt.
I can take a picture of what I saw and send it to you.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So that was just essentially a progress photo towards the end of the growing season. Okay. So let's see if Jess can get a photo of what she's talking about and share that. Jess, maybe if you could send that to Cassie in advance of our next meeting and see if there's anything we can work toward resolution of. All right, ready to move on to the next? Complete automotive repair.
Yep. Yeah, so like I said, last meeting we had sent them the enforcement letter and then it got returned, but it was signed. So the return receipt was signed, but then I also, a couple days after that, got the letter and it was unopened. So I did some digging with USPS and they did the full research and said that sometimes if they can't reach someone, then the postal worker will just sign it themselves and then it gets sent back, which I was very surprised for them to say that. And it was really confusing to me, but that's what they said.
Wrong.
Yeah,
That's absolutely not the way that method is supposed to work at all.
Right.
But
So
had them return to sender, the green card is still attached and it's not touched.
exactly. And so that was the thing when the first time I called, it went to USPS and they called me back and were like, oh yeah, that shouldn't have happened. We're gonna have to do some more research with this specific branch itself. And then I got a call back with the specific branch and they were like, oh yeah, this is what we did. And I was like, how are we ever supposed to know if these ever get there? But so basically I'm kind of it's a question mark of, I don't think it makes sense just to send it again because I don't know if they'll get it. And it sounds like there was no one there anyways to receive it. So I wonder if I should just send it to, 10 O'Neill Street instead, even though that's the business and not necessarily property owner. I just don't know if I have a good point of contact anymore besides the business itself, since Mr. Fall is not answering his phone nor returning my calls. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the procedure is from there. And I did go there because I had to go to the printing store the other day next to it, and so I just kind of like took a look at the growth, and they're definitely not storing cars anymore, cars there anymore, nor are they mowing it anymore. So it's just kind of just growing, whatever now.
So what do we want to do? Because clearly we're spending a whole lot of Cassie's time for not a lot of return for a buffer zone violation that is potentially self-restoring. Do we want to and I guess the other side of it is DEP is not going to lend support to buffer zone enforcement.
I would not anticipate that to happen.
I would say highly unlikely to.
Yeah.
So do we want to, now that we're leaving the growing season, entering the winter months, do we want to maybe put a pin in this until March or April and see if it continues to just be restored, like self-restore?
I think that makes sense.
So
check on it in the spring.
Yeah, Cassie, can we just take this one off the agenda with a reminder maybe in like March to put it back on?
Or if we see some different activity on the property, if we see
Right.
cars parked there or whatever.
Right, that would definitely warrant other, different action.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can definitely do that. I can set a little reminder and just kind of like keep it on my radar. Because otherwise it's weird because I don't really know how to contact them. So.
Right, and the what's supposed to be the reliable mechanism has just been undermined by the Postal Service.
Yeah.
That's just the strangest thing to me. I'm sorry.
I was so surprised.
Has this ever happened before?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, like I said last meeting with Greenfield, there had been someone who had returned it, but they realized what it was after they sent the return receipt back and never opened it and sent it back of their own accord. But that's not what happened here. So.
And that's still not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like at that point, why bother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we,
All right.
it's Mike, do we have to take it off the agenda? How do we get it back on when it's time? Can we put
Put
a
it
note?
back on.
Yeah, there's no procedure for putting things on the agenda or something like this. There's no procedure for putting them on or off. We've been putting like all the active projects and other enforcement actions because there's potential for updates. But if there doesn't seem to be a potential for an update for this one for some time, at least until the growing season, it makes sense to me. But there's no like official procedure.
Well, I was just saying, say we get a new commissioner, how would that person know to put it back on the agenda?
Oh, it may
Or,
be. Yeah. That's a good question. I would probably do something administrative on my end. I have like all the open, I have a document with all the open projects and enforcement orders and things like that. So that would, that doesn't go away. That's saved here. But I'm not going to leave also. I don't plan to.
that was the only example that was relevant. I just don't understand why we needed to take it off the agenda. Can we just say postpone till?
If it's on the agenda, we have to talk about it and we'll waste 10
Well,
minutes.
if it's on the agenda, we can talk about it. I was just thinking of,
Okay.
where it's worth putting things on the agenda for active discussion and where it's not. And if Cassie is maintaining a running list of open action or active, semi-active items, there are a couple on here that we really don't have anything happening with.
Okay.
I see where you're coming from too, Michael. I feel compelled to discuss them when they're on the agenda, even if there's nothing to really discuss.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. Any spring 2021 updates or the next round for Cernak, or is there an end of year report that we're expecting, Cassie?
Yeah, I'll reach out to them. I'm assuming, end of year report. But I'll reach out to them to get that.
Okay. St. Bridget Cemetery?
Yeah, so they have made a request based off of their last, because the last meeting we talked about this in a significant way. They had, we were like, let's see how the plantings did after this growing season and like ask for another monitoring report. So here is the letter they were able to send by SWCA. And the question is like, is this sufficient to, their question is this sufficient to lift the enforcement order? And there are photos below.
Mm-hmm. So can you refresh my memory of what was required in the enforcement order in terms of monitoring and reporting?
Great. So let's see. I believe that there was let me just pull it up to be sure, but this was in addition to, I think it was kind of like left at our discretion of how we wanted to make sure that it was removed. There's the restoration plan, data form, comments. So doesn't want to open that for some reason. Hold on. Because they had submitted a mitigation plan, which is the only thing I can think where it would be in there.
I didn't know if our original enforcement order had anything, or if it was if they provided details in response to that.
Yeah, I don't have in my file here, and I might have this in the paper file, but I don't have the original enforcement order, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I'm sure it exists. But I don't know if we had any like explicit requirements.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, no, it doesn't say. I think that it was just that they submitted the restoration plan and based off of memory from our last conversation about it, I did a site visit, and when we talked, we were like, let's make sure that the plantings survive. So can we wait and get another monitoring report? So I don't know if that was like an explicit requirement from before or just an ask.
Okay. Does anyone have any recollections?
I thought we wanted to go through another growing season, but that might have been a different project.
Well, I did my, let's see, I did my site visit back in July 27th, which was the first time that we checked the plantings. And then these images, or their second monitoring, their report was completed on October 6th.
Is there any reason to think that the area will not continue to thrive? I mean, it seems like they got it established during this growing season. Is that what you think, Cassie?
Yeah, I mean, during my site visit, it looked pretty, the grass is coming in good and it looked stable enough to remove the erosion controls that they had put up for that restoration work. And then based off of these images from the second growing report, and it seems by SWCA's assessment that it seems stable.
If the site has revegetated, if they've done everything that was required and the site has revegetated and is stabilized, I have no concerns about the future of the area. Anyone else?
They've been very cooperative through the whole process, so I think they've done everything we've asked them to.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think a big part of it too is like shifting operations. Before they had just been kind of dumping stuff back there, and now there's a designated area for it, and they fixed the area where all the dumping occurred. So at least in that way, the action is the practices have changed as well. At least that's my understanding.
Okay, I'm fine with releasing them from the enforcement order. Or rescinding?
I think it's
the
like
language of what we're
lifting.
doing here? Terminating?
There's no official process for removing an enforcement order. It's just, we decide to, what I've been doing is I'll send a letter with our official letterhead and be like, this is officially removed, or like, you're good, essentially.
So do we want to make a motion that, let me get my language here.
It's called lift the enforcement order.
Yeah,
Yes,
that they've satisfied the requirements and that the commission would like, is going to lift the enforcement order.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Again.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Harwood.
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Yusa.
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. That one's officially coming up. So Cassie, you'll write a letter. We'll take it off the agenda. Job well done.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Autumn Properties LLC, rear 161, 165 Northampton Street. Have you ever been able to find a file about this, Cassie? Or old emails?
Yeah, no, I remember trying to do a bunch of research about this and it was like kind of a dead end. And I was hoping, I think the last time we talked about it is that I was going to try to like redo the whole like file system and make it all, get all the paper files in order. And it kind of got derailed by COVID and all that stuff. But now that I'm done with that Green Communities grant, I think I can really like dive into that. It wouldn't take me super long to do. So kind of, I don't know.
Do you have any way of accessing old email?
All I have is access to Ken Comia's email. So
Okay.
anything before Ken, no.
You can't access the previous agent's email?
Oh, I have the conservation account if it was used on that account. But if it was on her like individual, because it's like I have my individual email that's just C Traggart, and then there's the conservation email that's like usually
Right.
to the public. So if it was used on that, maybe, but I feel like I looked through that, but I'll double check.
Do you
But
think we
otherwise,
could
yeah, the
ask
previous
the
agent-
IT department or IT person, if might be a department of one, if they can search the previous agent's email to see if there's anything in there rather than give you access to it. I don't know if that's an issue. But if you could give them some search terms and if they could search the email for it, because I mean, this is back in 2016.
Right.
When that's before her time.
Isn't municipal email a public record anyways? It shouldn't be a
Theoretically,
privacy issue.
it shouldn't be, but does Jeff as her supervisor have her inbox in his inbox?
Yeah, I can ask him about it. I'll see.
Okay. Okay.
I have some old emails from David Boyle about this back in July of wherever. I mean, I could just forward those things to Cassie to look at.
That'd be great, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I guess the same thing process for 37 South Street.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to open space updates. Do we have any regarding either of these items?
No updates.
Great. All right, compliance updates. Are there any significant updates to report on here?
Yes. The first Pleasant Street Mills, that one is going to expire soon. They are going to come for an extension just as an update. That's probably the next meeting.
Okay, so that needs to be received at least 30 days before December 20th. And if it's not, we cannot act on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've already reached out to him. He's going to send it hopefully sooner rather than later, but he knows when it's due. So.
Okay. Well, great. Lathrop, or do we? I don't know. We don't need to run
Yeah,
through.
I'll tell you the next one.
That's even better.
Okay, so the next one, let's see. I just didn't know if there was any. I was kind of expecting someone from Park Street Solar to come. I didn't know if Julie had anything to say about 232 Park Street based off of that site visit from a while ago. I know that there was a lot of water on the site. I didn't know if you had any concerns. I know it was really rainy that day, so I don't know if that was a factor.
Yeah, I have notes. Hang on, let me pull them up.
Okay, thank you.
So I forget when that was. It's been several weeks now.
Right.
The main thing I noticed was there are a number of stormwater basins on the site. I think there are maybe 5 of them, and I did not think that they were sufficiently vegetated. Several of them were ponded at the time we were there because it had been rainy, but you could see through the water, and I took a bunch of pictures, which hopefully you received, Cassie.
Yes.
Showing that the vegetation in the bottoms was pretty sporadic. There were a lot of bare areas. I also noted that we didn't have access to the plans, but in the replication area, the shrubs were there, but otherwise the only thing sprouting was grass, which didn't seem right to me. I assumed there was supposed to be some sort of appropriate seed mix used. We couldn't really check the grades or the dimensions without the plans, so I don't know if it was really built the way it was supposed to be. I'd still be interested to see how it was supposed to be designed under what we eventually approved. Oh, there was.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. This is from the 13th. These are the images that Julie sent me. I'm just going to scroll through them slowly.
There are I believe dozens.
Wait, where was, okay, so which crossing is this?
This is the first crossing.
Okay.
And at this crossing, I did notice that, and the pictures don't really show it very well, but you can see, so that's the inlet that she just passed, and you can see here in this one, you can see this stone, so you can see the small stone. On the outlet, you don't really see any of that, so I'm not completely convinced that the stream bed material made it all the way through the structure the way it was supposed to. This is the outlet, and so it may just be that sediment is moving and already accumulating and burying it, but you really don't see any of that stone at the outlet side. There were also several areas, and I know that Jeff Bagg noted this as well, where in the non-basin areas, there were bare spots that hadn't vegetated.
Do you think to the degree that the site is like unstable?
I mean, there's certainly areas that are not stabilized, yeah.
Okay.
Do you think
overall, I think it's fairly well stable, but
cause sedimentation down gradient?
Sorry, what's that?
The areas that have not stabilized, are they on slopes, or are they likely to erode and cause sedimentation to down gradient areas?
One in particular that's along the road coming out, so it'll be at the end of the pictures, I thought had potential.
Okay.
This is the replication area that you just passed.
Ooh.
I was just trying to find that one spot so that we could. Like here?
No, further down.
Oh, down.
Actually, this looking through so just on the inside of the gate, this is part of it, and then it continues down the slope to, I think, what would be the west, towards one of the stormwater basins.
Okay.
So this whole area along the road was not very well vegetated either.
Yeah. And I wonder if trying to think the last time I was out there, I wonder if a number of it died, because they had their tree plantings died. That was part of the planning board. It's back in July was the last site visit that I had done. So I wonder if the summer was just too harsh or what.
Julie, you emailed these photos on October 26th. Have you recalled the date of the site visit?
It was on the 13th.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was there was 1 week or like weekend that we just got a ton of rain.
Pause there for a minute, Cassie.
Yeah.
So this was also a question I had. I don't know if this is how it was designed, but the way that this basin is built, the only place it can overflow is back onto the road. The elevation is significantly lower on the road side than on the berm side.
So they're going to have to provide as-built with elevations for these basins.
Right.
And I was just looking back at, mid-October for rainfall totals, and between the 13th and the 14th, it was at least 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches, depending on where you're looking, in terms of rainfall. Right around the day of your site visit.
Right.
And that doesn't seem like enough for it to be that full of water.
I wondered that too. I forget the name of the person from the project that we were walking around with. He said that they're draining at the speed they're supposed to be, but I questioned how much water was in several of them.
I mean, there wasn't, I guess
that one,
the week before there was like 3/4 of an inch. But again,
that long skinny one is receiving a lot of area, I believe. Again, not having access to the plans to see what was actually supposed to drain to it. I think that one receives probably the largest area, but it did seem like a lot of water standing in it.
Mhm.
There's also, I don't think that this has any bearing on us, but in the recent storm, there was a significant area of blowdown on one side. That I don't think that would have any. Yeah.
I think those trees were exposed for the first time ever. I think there was other trees in front of them.
Yeah.
They're just exposed and got ripped down, broken off.
Right.
In terms of the seed mix question, I don't know, some of you probably know more about this than I do, but some of those restoration mixes have annual and perennial grasses mixed in addition to the more restoration-y seeds. And I think some of the like native non-grass plants take at least one like dormant period to, you know, really get themselves germinating. So on that one project, we're actually using a seed mix that supposedly takes like 2 to 3 years to fully establish, which is going to make us all nervous, I think. But I think it's going to look like grass in year 1, and then it's going to look better in year 2. But in our case, it's like impossible to tell if they actually use the right one or if it's, you know, or not.
Well, they're supposed to provide a report.
Yeah.
And Cassie, if you could check not necessarily this moment, but if you can check the requirements of the order, you know, that those reports are typically required by the end of November or the end of December at the latest.
Right. And I you know, I told them that for the COC, and it was particularly for the wetland replication area, they were going to need, you know, 2 growing seasons worth of reports. So they have they don't intend to go for the COC this year, I don't think.
I think we flat out said at their previous meetings they've attended that they have to get 2 years of monitoring and, you know, documenting success of the replication areas before they can consider requesting a certificate of compliance.
Right.
This is the second crossing. And I think this is probably how it was meant to be, but the old crossing was left in place. So there's this sort of awkward gap between them. Does anyone remember if this is?
No, I remember a replacement crossing.
They did a replacement crossing at, I think that might even be like outside of their property, because they did they did 2 replacement crossings, but at this one crossing, I think that I remember discussing this with him being like, oh yeah, that's outside of our we can't touch that culvert. But there was always, yeah.
It was outside the limit of work, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, that's what he said on the visit. From just, I would be concerned as the owner of the new structure that it's going to be undermined by the scour that's likely to occur in that space, but that's just me. I mean, there's not going to be ever a lot of flow velocity through here, but.
Cassie, do you think you could get out there for like a dry weather monitoring or observation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll give it a try. I think definitely, I think I should be able to do that before the next meeting. I think they've always been really receptive of me scheduling site visits and such. I don't know, the weather's been so nice recently. I'll try to see if I can do it this week, see when it's going to rain next, if I can beat that.
I think it's going to rain Wednesday.
Oh, God.
Just.
I might be able to get it. I don't know. I'll try. But otherwise, then I'll wait a couple days after that one, if I can't.
So the replication area should be just above this, I believe. I don't know why they're upside down, but that's it.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, and the road's over here where these guys are.
But it's, I mean, it looks like just standard grass that's coming up in there, and there's nothing else in the
Does it look like they excavated to grade?
Not really clear. I'm interested to see the as-built.
Yeah.
I don't know what the grade was supposed to be, but it didn't look substantially different from what was around it.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain they were supposed to excavate.
Excuse me. When I did my site visit, it was they had an excavator back there, and the soil seemed like they were doing the grade work, you know, like getting ready to do that. But yeah, I don't know.
It's pretty flat, I would say. So if it's supposed to dip at any point, I don't know that it does.
We're Cassie, we're supposed to get it's looking like half an inch of rain Wednesday into Thursday.
Oh.
Potentially. So and then again potentially more Sunday into Monday. So either tomorrow or Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I can try.
Or later in the week next week.
I'll reach out to them. I don't even know if anyone needs to be there for me to do a site visit. I think for the order, I can just go. So
you can just go. You don't even have to notify them.
Yeah. I'll just send him. I might send him an email to be like, I'm going tomorrow, like probably tomorrow morning. So just get it done.
Okay.
I think I might have seen this.
That seems like way too much. How deep would you say that was, Julie?
Well, in the one on the far edge, the long linear one on the north side, maybe it was at least 4 or 5 inches deep, maybe more. Some of the other ones, it was probably 2 or 3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like a lot of water everywhere, you know, for the amount of rain that we had. It seemed like a lot of water.
Okay.
So are we thinking? Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, thinking ahead and thinking of other sites in Easthampton, there is an obligation that the stormwater basins function. And if they don't function, then we as a commission should not be issuing certificates of compliance for that, and we should be requiring corrective actions, even if it means they have to return to remobilize to the site and, you know, or present design modifications for those corrective actions and then implement them.
Yeah, that's why we have the bond.
Right. So.
Well, we should see what it's like after it's not rained in 5 days, and you know, if Cassie gets out there tomorrow.
It's gonna be a narrow window, Jay.
I know she's, you know.
I think I can work out.
Gotta get up early and get out there.
Dry within 48 hours.
Yeah.
So she shouldn't have to wait 5 days.
True. I'm just thinking like the gap between forecasted rain events is tight.
Right.
Well, so are we wanting to see if they do successfully drain within 48 hours? Do you want me to wait till after it rains and then go 48 hours after that?
I'd rather have you go twice.
Okay.
I'd rather have you see it before it rains. Because if they're holding water, then that's a problem because it hasn't rained. It pretty much hasn't rained in over a week.
Right.
If I'm remembering correctly. So if there's any standing water when you get out there, that's cause for concern.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, cool. I can definitely do that.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else about this? Or are we kind of ready to go to the next one?
Move on.
Okay, cool.
What is the next one?
The next one is River Valley Co-op. They had a request for administrative approval for a change for the location of the batteries.
Is it within the state? Is it within the limit of work?
Yes. Let me see.
Okay. Does anyone want to discuss this further?
No.
Motion to grant administrative approval for change in location of batteries within the previously approved limit of work. Is there a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? August,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Harwood,
Aye.
Buttrick,
Aye.
Busa,
Aye.
Whittemore. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I didn't have any other project updates.
Is there anything else anyone wants to know or anyone wants to express any questions, comments, concerns about? I would like to say, can you please follow up regarding the 298 and 300 Loudville Road site? As we're rounding out the growing season, something that required on things growing is of concern.
Okay. So specifically, what's up with the growing of the plants?
The status, did they complete those other modifications?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. I haven't heard from them yet, so I'll reach out.
And has anyone seen any activity at the Loven site off of O'Neill Street? I haven't been around much, but or out and about much, but I have gone through there a couple times, and I don't think I've noticed any.
Other than they're piling some materials now and then, but I haven't seen really any activity.
Yeah, I've been getting reports from Mark Reed consistently, so everything is secure.
Because Jay, that's interesting. So it's not really a stockpile location. So
No, but it's not big piles. It's not big piles. It's like just, randomly, all of a sudden there's a pile of material there that they probably took off some other site and, brought it here. I don't know.
Right, but that's what I mean. It's not meant to be like a stockpile location. It's for other sites. But let's see where they go with it.
Okay.
Okay. Meeting minutes, September 28th, 2020.
That was so very long ago. Was I there?
Was I there?
Pretty sure.
Has anyone actually had a chance to review these?
I didn't
not
look
there.
at them. I didn't look at them.
Okay, so why don't we, since no one's had a chance to review these, why don't we postpone this to our November 23rd meeting?
Okay.
That way, hopefully we can, unfortunately, we're not ready to act on those. 2021 legal ad, or 2021 meeting schedule. Cassie, you are on the ball.
Didn't know if anyone had a chance to review that. I think
I'm looking at it right now, and I'm thinking December 27th is.
Yeah.
I won't be there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I knew technically it fit the right timing, but I wasn't sure if we were allowed to just be like, we don't want to do that one. It's up to you guys. I don't know what the rules are.
It's not a holiday.
Can we get quorum?
Well, I think if we can't, we just deal with it at the time.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. How do folks feel about that?
By December of 2021, I hope to not be sitting in this same spot at Christmas.
I agree.
No,
which case I won't be there.
So are we thinking leave on there, but
Yeah.
with the understanding that we may not have quorum?
Right. I have not looked at this to look at things like other holidays. Cassie, do we have any meetings that fall on a state holiday?
I believe there was one.
Where
This year we had a bunch, but
yeah,
only one.
where was that? Is that October?
I think so. I had to go pull it up again. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, must be October. That's why we skipped over it. I think October 11th is something.
Is October 11th Columbus Day?
I think so. I think that's what it is.
So we probably shouldn't have that be a submittal deadline.
Okay.
So let's move it to the Thursday before.
Yeah.
And then maybe just run through both the submittal deadlines and the publication deadlines and make sure none of those fall on a holiday.
Okay.
That from a legal ad perspective, that will not count as a day, as a business.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah. You only get tripped up by that one once. True story.
Oh my. Legal ad gets them every time.
It was some stupid Massachusetts holiday too.
All right.
Okay. So I think you'll run through that and see, see if there are any updates to present at the next meeting. But if not, I'm fine with this as is in general. So.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
That was it for me.
All right. So do we have a motion to adjourn? Please.
We're having too much fun.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? August.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Harwood.
Aye.
Bubchik.
Aye.
Busa.
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. See you all on the 23rd. Thank you.
Bye.
Night.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Cassie.
Have a good night.
See y'all.